Hello, class. This is Dr. Wilcox and Professor McClellan. Say hi.
Hey everybody, welcome.
And we're going to be talking through the first half of Unit 2. Now, Unit 2 is particularly vexing. Do you have a hypothesis as to why that might be, Robin?
Well, I talked about this last time. It's one of my favorite topics, but
Ooh, a favorite topic. Let's hear it. Let's hear the
in the in
explanation.
the history of Western music,
Western.
well, I'm going to limit it to Western.
Cowboys?
Western, that means European
Oh,
slash.
okay, that's not John Wayne.
No, not so much John Wayne. Well, maybe he would be included in this, but if John Wayne were to sit down and try to figure out how am I going to write down my favorite cowboy song,
Yeah, John Wayne doesn't look like someone who'd be able to sit down. He looks like
he'd do it from.
I prefer to stand. Okay, so
Anyway,
moving on.
he would have a lot easier time notating the pitches and the notes that are higher and lower and the harmonies and all that stuff than he would writing the rhythms. In fact, I proved this point with one of my classes I taught once. I played them a melody and I said, come up, none of them read music at all. And I said, try to figure out how to write this down. Just make up your own notation. Come up with some way of representing the sound on paper. And most of them came up with things that went up and down, and you could see where the pitches went. But coming up with rhythm was so tough. And so in the history of Western music, it took people a lot longer to figure this stuff out, and it may take you longer to figure out the system that has been determined. So if you struggle a little bit with this unit, uh, it's totally understandable, and we're here to help you. That's what all of
Well,
that was.
what can be done? What can be done if hundreds of years of musicians have failed in their attempts to figure out rhythm? How can I, someone with no experience, a chemical engineer perhaps, how can I master rhythm? And I say chemical engineers because I'm always working with chemicals and trains. No,
I
is that
will.
what a
I
different
will
kind
say
of
that
engineer?
I will say that I'm glad I'm not an engineer or a physics person or a chemist because I would be completely lost.
I
Um,
would be lost.
anyway, my answer
I
to
could
that
I could be in HR though.
that would be good.
Be good for
My
HR.
my answer to you who are struggling or who may find yourselves struggling is that a lot of what you are learning in this unit is stuff you already know because you've experienced it. This is stuff that you have heard throughout your life. You feel it in your body when you hear music, when you tap your foot to music. That's like 90% of this unit right there. Just you get it already. So what you're really doing here is you're applying new terminology and new concepts to stuff you already know. So that might help you a little bit in the confidence department just to know that, like, if I don't get this, it's not because it's some completely brand new topic that has nothing to do with anything I've ever seen before. It's how am I going to apply this terminology or this symbol on the page to this phenomenon that I already can know and feel and understand. And
Okay,
that's my answer.
I am ready to learn. I am ready to hear what you have to say. I'm before we completely nerd out on on theory history.
Yeah.
Why don't we move through and go through the first 3 or 4 lessons,
Yep.
the material, and look at some of the concepts, and then we can have some questions. I see we already have a victim, a volunteer, a student who wants to join us. So
Great.
let's go ahead and get moving on Unit 2.
Sounds great.
Oh,
So
and thanks for coming, everyone.
yeah, thanks for all of you for being here and
If anybody's here, we really are glad you're here. So.
yeah, and the point of this is to answer your questions. So if you have a burning question that's been bugging you, this is a great time to answer to ask it, and we will answer it. Because otherwise, we're just going through all this stuff that's in your lessons, which we hope will help. But to really hone in on what you need to know, you need to ask us. So
Yeah, we answer burning questions, not questions about burning. Those
right.
questions should be directed to your doctor.
All right, so here's your first concept. The other thing I know we've done a lot of prefatory statements, but one more
Big
is
word.
that there's actually not a whole lot of stuff to learn in these first 4 lessons of Unit 2. The number of actual concepts you need to learn is pretty low. It's a matter of really getting what they mean. So first one is beat and pulse. And Doc Wilcox, what is a beat? How do you do? We all say, oh, I like the beat. I like the beat of that song. What is that? What is a beat? What does that even mean? What is a pulse in music or in life? What's a pulse?
Something steady, like a heart, because we say heartbeat,
Yes.
so it's something like the heart that's continuous and steady repetition.
You couldn't have said it better. It is a steady...
I could have. I'm sure I could have.
Well, here's a beat. It just sounds like this. I hope I'm not maxing out my mic.
No,
It's just a steady pulse of beats, of moments in time when you hear a sound that are basically the same amount of time apart.
Yeah, it's a predictable repetition. It's as we said, it's something humans understand. So if I clap 2 beats, you will automatically be able to project into the future where that 3rd beat will be. So I'm going to clap 2 beats, and Professor McClone will be able to, from his sense of music, from his sense of human culture, he'll be able to hear, project, and join me on that 3rd one. So here's 3 beats with Professor McClone on the 3rd one. Yeah, well, I mean, despite the latency of the internet, yeah, you got it, right? He was right on, and it's something everyone should be able to feel.
And this is not because I'm an eminent expert doctorate of music. This is because I'm a person. All of you can do this. This is just basic stuff.
I don't know if musicians are people.
Well,
I think that's a broad statement, Molly Cyrus. That musicians aren't necessarily people, but some people are musicians.
That was brutal. Okay, moving on. Next topic is how fast or slow does the beat go? And this is again something we all know. How many of you in high school dreaded the slow dance or looked forward to the upbeat fast dance? Or maybe looked forward to the slow dance when you could cuddle your sweetheart. Who knows? Tempo. This is again a musical term that you're applying to something that you already know. So a fast beat, a fast tempo is, right? A slow tempo is. So again, that's all that means. Tempo, speed.
Speed of the beat.
Beats can be strong or weak. They can be, so in other words, what does that mean, strong or weak? Like how much they lift at the gym? No, it means how much punch or force they have. So a strong beat is like pow, and then a weak beat is like little pow. So they're best heard in relation to each other. So strong, weak, strong, weak. That's pretty much all.
We will yes. Rock you, right? Like that.
Good example, yes.
Oh, now see, can we sing Queen? Is that a? That's really showing our age.
I'm gonna let you.
Is that like a universal one?
Well, I think that's become a classic for the ages. I don't know, but that so there's 2 more topics in lesson 1. But for the sake of time, I think that basically sums up what you need to know for lesson 1. What is a beat? How fast or slow does it go? That's tempo. And how do you tell when a beat is strong versus weak? And just one more note about that. That's really about beats in relation to each other. If I just clap a beat, it's kind of hard to tell whether it's strong or weak because it's strong or weak in relation to the beats around it. That's what matters. In this lesson, we also talk about rubato and free rhythm. Those are important but not vital topics. So I think maybe, do you agree, Dr. Wilcox, we might skip over those for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Post your questions. We want to hear from you. Otherwise, we're just going to keep ranting on as we're doing now. Lesson 2 starts to get a little trickier, but it's still stuff that you all know and love from your experience of listening to music. Meter. This is another terminology for something you already know. And what is another word, Doc Wilcox, that could also express what meter means?
Pattern.
Pattern?
Beat pattern.
Yes. I like to think of meter as a grouping of beats. beats that are grouped into little chunks that you can recognize, like 4 beats, and then 4 more beats, and then 4 more beats, and there's a pattern of 4 beats, right? Like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a strong beat, and then 3 weak beats, and then another strong beat, and then 3 weak beats. And if you keep going like that, that's a meter. That's quadruple meter because there's 4 beats.
So if I wanted a 2-beat meter, it'd be strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak.
Exactly.
And triple would be
strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. So this, I'm kind of imagining some of you sitting out there. Maybe this is just my own fevered imagination, and you're sitting there and you're like, what's the big deal? This stuff is so basic. Why are you even wasting our time telling us this stuff? And my answer to you is, well, it is really simple, and this stuff you can all get. I don't mean to discount those of you who may not find it simple, but this is the experience. What I mean is that the experiential nature of this, just the ability to clap a beat and say, this is the strong beat, this is the weak beat. I think that's something that if you practice and you get into your bones, we can all do this. And then the step that might be more difficult is the kind of conceptual stuff, like making it all apply and then getting into notation. That can be the tricky part. But what we're trying to emphasize is that the basic concepts behind it are really approachable. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you can count to 2, if you can count to 3, if you can tap your foot, you're gold.
Yeah. So then you get into the terminology, and that's where you might start to trip up. So we're going to say duple meter. Now that sounds kind of complicated. It's like this jargony kind of thing. That means music with 2 beats in a grouping, in a pattern. Duple meter, two beats.
So
quadruple meter.
1,
yeah.
2.
So if you can count, if you're sitting there listening to your favorite song, and you're counting 4 beats, that's quadruple meter. You already know the answer. If you're counting 3 beats, triple meter. It is not necessarily easy to sit and listen to a song and identify the meter. I will say that. That's not something that all of us can just sit down and do right the first time.
It's a practice thing, right?
It's certainly something that all of you can learn how to do.
Yeah.
So that's lesson 2. We get into a couple more terminology.
Well, I mean, one of the things which just I want to interject real quick is
please.
There are lots and lots of examples of duple, triple, quadruple in lessons, and you should play and listen to those, and you should think to yourself, all right, this is triple, so I should expect 3 beats, and I should expect a strong beat followed by 2 weak beats. So try to say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But one thing I do is I like to bob my head on the strong ones.
Yes.
And that generally helps, because if I bob my head on every beat, 1, 2, 3, 1, all of a sudden you realize that besides being awkward, your body and giving you a headache, what if you kind of bob your head slowly, what you'll naturally do without thinking about it is you'll bob your head on the strong beat. You'll naturally fall in with the music. So if you bob your head and you can keep tapping your foot, you can start counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that'll give you a sense of what the meter is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, something like that. So give that a try with the examples we provide.
It's actually a case of where your body and your instinct might know the answer before your brain does.
Ooh.
You can follow. If you're bobbing your head on it, if you just listen to any song and you find you're bobbing your head or you're tapping your foot or you're swaying, whatever it is, you're correct. You're going to be right, and then it's just a matter of letting your brain trust what you're feeling in the music. So, and then again, it's about the technicalities. So, still in lesson 2, one pattern of meter or one grouping of like 4 beats or 3 beats is a measure. So again, it's just applying a new musical term to a familiar phenomenon, right? A measure is the same as a bar. And then lesson 2 gets into beat hierarchies. And again,
Ooh,
that
that sounds complicated.
That sounds complicated.
That sounds hard.
It sounds hard. And so you really do need to focus on the lesson and read it carefully. But essentially, what that means is, in a measure of 3 beats, strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. That's a hierarchy. Strong is higher on the hierarchy than weak. In 4/4 time, in quadruple meter, where there's 4 beats, it gets a little more tricky because then there's 3 levels in the hierarchy. There's strong, weak, medium strong, weak, strong, weak, medium strong, weak. So that gets slightly more complicated, but really still it's quite simple. There's not a whole lot to it.
So I'm still counting 1, 2, or 3, or 4. I'm still. I haven't even gotten to my thumb. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, can I tap my foot? Can I bob my head? Do I even need a thumb? Maybe.
Exactly. This is
Maybe.
all about 2s, 3s, and maybe 4s.
Maybe 4.
Well, that's actually an important point. That reminds me. 2 and 4 are different, but very closely related by simple matter of multiplication table. 2 goes into 4. So if I'm counting, let's say there's a song that goes, a drum beat, a really simple drum beat that just goes strong, weak, 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 strong, weak, weak, weak. That's 4. But you could also go strong, weak, and it wouldn't sound that different. That's 2. So 2 goes into 4. Sometimes you might hear a song and think has 4 beats. Somebody else just might say it has 2 beats. You might both be kind of right. So that can be a little confusing. But don't worry, you'll figure it out.
Yep.
We move on to lesson 3.
Sure.
Okay.
And remember, at any time, if there's anybody out there, they can totally ask questions.
Yes, we're standing by. Well, we're talking at you, and we're also watching Piazza for your questions. And of course, if you want to join the call and then ask your questions in real time, that's great too. We'll open it up in a few minutes. Basic notation for this is lesson 3, notating individual rhythmic values. So this is where again you're dealing with new concepts and new visual symbols on the page for familiar things. So typically 1 beat is a quarter note. It's not going to always be.
Should we actually show them that, you think?
Yeah, why not?
I
think you have the rhythm palette open.
Yeah, why don't we, let's see. I'm going to share my screen. And... oh, I hear a ding. Yes, I think that was me.
Okay.
So I'm going to, usually 1 beat is, and many of these meters, 1 beat is usually a quarter note. So that's kind of the standard measure we'll use. And we can, have multiple quarter notes all joined into the same duration, or we can break the quarter note into smaller durations.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just have, maybe I'll have 2 quarter notes. Well, 2 quarter notes actually fit into 1 half note. So if I added the duration of these 2 notes together, it would be the duration of a half note. And if I added 2 half notes together, it would be the duration of a whole note.
So you guys, you've probably thought you were done with arithmetic in elementary school, but it's back.
Yeah.
And it's really what it comes down to. It's arithmetic. And sometimes I think the temptation is actually for a student not temptation, but the danger is that a student might actually make it more complicated than it is in your head. So always go back to basics. All the notes add up. It's pretty logical for the most part. With there's a couple odd conceptual things that you'll run into, which we explain in the lessons, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So why don't we go in the other direction real quick? If I have a quarter note, I can break that into 2 eighth notes. And an individual eighth note can be broken into 2 16th notes. They're half of an eighth note.
Mm-hmm.
So for each of those eighth notes, I could get 2 16th notes. So 1 quarter note divided by 2 is 2 eighths, divided by 2 again is 4 16ths. And I could go one more time and divide those 4 16ths by half, and I would get 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, this is tedious. 5.
We encourage you to
6,
use this rhythm palette to practice, by the way.
7, 8. So then I would get 8 30-second notes. So 8 30-second notes joined together, 4 16ths joined together to 2 eighths joined together, 1 quarter note. 2 quarters joined together is a half, and 2 halves joined together is a whole. And then, do you want to take it from there, Robin?
So, you mean going further with the note values, or just in general?
Do we cover anything more in lesson 3?
I was just going to point out there's a graphic, and I don't have it right in front of me, or I'd share it, but it's called the beat tree, and it basically lays all of this right out there very clearly. Yes, you'll see it. You can't miss it.
This guy?
Yes, there it is.
Oh, yes. And if you hit play, it will play. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so but turn the volume up. The sound is a little soft on it. But
yeah, so if you ever need a reference, it's right there in the lesson for you. There's the rest of the lesson gets into a couple of fiddly details about beams and flags and ties and dots, and that stuff is important. So it starts to be where notation can trip you up a little bit. So study that carefully, but it's all very approachable and doable.
Yeah, and if we know you have a question, that's a lot easier for us because then we can target and answer a specific question.
Exactly.
But the most important thing is this beat tree, knowing how to divide like a whole note into 2, a half note into 2, a quarter note into 2, an eighth note into 2, and a 16th note into 2. I mean, that's kind of the most important things. And you notice how sometimes you see a beat tree and it tends to have the big note at the top and the small notes at the bottom, but really that seems like not how a tree works. So we started with a nice solid base and divided and divided and divided, and you can see all the little leaves here of 30-second notes at the top.
Exactly. Also notice the horizontal spacing, that a whole note should take more space on the page left to right because it takes more time. All right, lesson 4. So everything that we've talked about so far, is that you clicking out of the screen share?
Yeah, I was just letting you.
Okay, so everything we've talked about is about beats as a whole. We think of a beat as a musical object that happens in time. Everything we've talked about in lessons 1 and 2 were about how many beats there are, groupings of beats, sort of the macro level of beat. Lesson 4, we're going to take a microscope and go inside the beat. What's happening inside a beat? And so this sounds complicated, but again, it's something you've all experienced. Here's a beat in 4/4 time. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 beats. What if each of those beats, we're going to go inside the beat, divides into 2 little mini halves? Then it would sound like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So we're talking in lesson 4 about what's inside the beat. And again, it breaks into 2 very simple things. There's beats that divide into two little chunks, and that's called simple time. And then chunks, and that's called compound time. And that sounds like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and da 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 da.
So give me an example of this in like music. What would be like, for instance, I'll give like my favorite example is for a beat that breaks into 2 would be Yankee Doodle. So if this is my beat, Yankee Doodle, 1 da 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 da. Yankee Doodle, 1 2 down,
So
So
if
that's
you're listening to him right now and tapping your foot, you're tapping your foot on the beats, which is Yankee Doodle, da 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 da. I'm clapping the beats, but there's actually two little mini notes that happen every beat, and those are the beat divisions in simple time.
Yankee Doodle. Yes.
Exactly. I'm trying to so compound meter is slightly less common, and I'm trying to think of examples. Um, there's a from Leonard Bernstein, The West Side Story. I want to be in America. Da, 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 da. That actually has a slightly tricky third measure, which don't get thrown off. But just think of those first two measures. Da, da,
Or
da, 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 da. That's compound
that's
time.
that's a little. I mean, kind of a more familiar, maybe like Greensleeves.
Yes, good idea.
Yeah.
Could you
So,
demonstrate?
Greensleeve. One two three 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 one two three. So every beat is divided by 3.
Exactly. So lesson 4 is worth spending some time on because what it does, we give you all these different meters. We give you simple. So earlier on we gave you duple meter, triple meter, and quadruple meter. Now we're giving you simple and compound. Those are modifiers.
Yeah.
Duple meter comes in 2 varieties. It comes in simple duple and compound duple. Triple comes in 2 varieties, simple and compound. So you end up with a whole bunch of different combinations of these things. Sorry, there's a helicopter dive bombing my house. I don't know if you can hear it. And so lesson 4 looks like all this information we're throwing at you. Really all it is it's a combination of a few very simple things in all these different combinations.
So we have. Oh, do you want to do it?
No, go ahead.
So we have beats, and then we have, which is just a steady pulse, and
Yep.
then we have tempo, which talks about how fast that pulse is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have, just to make sure I got this all down from you, we have beat emphasis. Some beats are strong and some beats are weak.
Yep.
And those beats show up in patterns of 2s and 3s and 4s. So duple, triple, and quadruple. So triple would be strong, weak, weak. And then each one of those beats can be divided again by 2 or 3. So if I had a duple, it's 1, 2, 1, 2. And if I had a simple duple, so my beats are dividing into 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then compound would divide each beat into 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But with still retaining the duple, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that.
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
with this, what I'd recommend is practicing. Listen to the examples carefully and practice. And when you're on however you get to class, walking, taking the shuttle, whatever it is, tap is like be doing this stuff kind of in your free time, just like tapping things out, practicing, getting yourself used to all of these ideas and the way that they apply to sound and to your experience.
So I'm going to go ahead and post the link in the forum.
Great.
For our viewer. And if people want to join, they are welcome to join. And if we don't, boy, we went kind of long there. We should.
I know we're very
rhythm. Rhythm is difficult. It's very simple, basic things that everybody understands. At the same time, no one's ever thought about it too much. I mean, you're on the dance floor, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
You just do it. So anyway, the link is posted in the forum. If we still have the student who wants to join us, Jonathan. I'm clearly not saying that right. Gershon, Mr. Gershon here. If people want to join us, they are welcome to join us. And we'll hang out for 4 or 5 minutes, say Robin. And
sounds
if anything,
good.
is there anything else that we should be mentioning in this?
I think that's it. Again, it's a matter of taking your experience as a person listening to music and all this stuff you already know by instinct and by listening, and many of you play instruments, and applying these concepts and these terms to it, which at first might seem kind of pointless, like why can't I just listen to the song and enjoy it? But it will actually help you listen more deeply and understand more deeply. And of course also write it down in notation, which is a whole other skill.
Yeah, that's really a skill that we'll concentrate on in the second half of Unit 2. And we're really breaking these reviews up into two halves because Unit 2 just, it can feel vexing. It can feel foreign.
Your experience as a person with
Hey, we gotta.
all the stuff you already know by instinct and by listening. And
Hey, Robin.
It's Yonatan, by the way.
To
Yantan?
applying these concepts and these terms to it, which at first might seem kind of pointless. Like,
I'm hearing my voice.
But
well, that's because we have a guest speaker here.
Oh, I see.
And
Let me put
which is a
your
whole
headphones.
skill.
oh,
Okay.
super. Yeah, that's really a skill that we'll concentrate on in the second half of Unit 2. Yep. Okay, so
Hey, welcome.
Yantan, you probably want to turn off Piazza.
The what?
The live feed coming out of Piazza.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's a couple minutes behind what we're actually saying. Because it's got to go up to YouTube and then get processed and sent
Okay.
back out. So it's you're the first on-air visitor we've had.
I don't know if I'm watching or what, but
I dare not say that you are the only viewer tonight, but it might be the case. It may, but that's fine. That's fine. That's not. People watch these later, so.
So I don't have a lot of problems with the unit. A lot of the stuff is very familiar to me. I have pretty decent background. Like I already do a lot of music and some composition, and I'm mainly taking this course to kind of improve my knowledge of notation and theory. And so far, it's been familiarizing me a lot with certainly like areas that I didn't work a lot with, like the different clefs and the full and the grand staff and all that. But in terms of Unit 2, I think I'm pretty good. I joined the call because I didn't want to. I made sure that you would add me because I thought that this might be helpful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
I can't
joining.
think of any particular questions, but I thought I'd drop by anyway.
No, that was great. It's good to have you. You want to give us a little tour? Is that your dorm room there? Are we gonna get a dorm room tour?
Texas flag.
Texas flag.
Yeah, I'm from Texas. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm from Pennsylvania, but I'm living in California, so that's weird. Because
so you can the online courses you could teach at Rutgers from California.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm in New
It
York
is
City.
kind of cool. Yeah. Yeah, Robin's localer. I've never actually been on campus, which that's weird. That's kind of strange feeling.
Yeah, I've been down to New Brunswick a few times, but I'm normally not there, so it is a little weird to.
That's pretty funny.
But
Yeah.
but we're very present in terms of being available and clued in to what you guys are up to.
So
Awesome. I had a question in regards. I mean, since there's such a long line of people waiting to ask right now.
you can ask whatever you feel like.
Not really about this this unit, but I found that it's a question about the creative projects.
Yeah.
I've been finding that the interface for notating the projects is, like, it took me 2 hours to
Oh no.
just
that's
notes,
not
and it was
okay.
like super crowded. I was wondering. I noticed that in the instructions it said that like outside programs are not allowed. I was wondering if like pen and paper on like printed
Yeah,
out
yeah,
lines
yeah.
is fine.
Actually,
that's
we would
totally
love that.
fine.
Yeah, we try to provide an online tool because it's sort of more accessible and it doesn't require scanners and stuff. But if we actually love pen and paper, and if you want to use that and
Yeah.
maybe even a clear like phone photo of it that you can send us or scan it
I
or
could
whatever.
do it in pen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not a Flash developer, but I do my best with the Flash tools. I actually made them.
Oh, you made them.
Yeah. And the thing is, with the notation program plays it back for you. So it doesn't matter if you're good at music or bad at music. or if you notate it correctly or incorrectly, it'll just play back something at you. And
That's
it's
true.
kind of not really what we want. We want you to kind of try to put notes there and write, but I admit on that first one where he asked you to notate the melody twice up and down, that there's
It's only
really,
'cause
there's
for
not
me-
quite enough room.
For me,
Yeah.
I already know about the rhythm aspect of it, and it was strange to write a melody that didn't have any or time signature.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that we knew that would
And
be
like perform it, and I didn't know how to perform it.
Well,
yeah,
you just
we knew
you
that would
play
be
it like,
awkward especially for people like you who have that experience, and we figured for people who've
Right.
never done rhythm, it would be.
I understand
we'd want them to
that,
have
that
the voice.
I'm coming into this course in a place that is less common.
Yeah.
So
Actually, the funny thing is your experience is more common, and
Is it?
just because we do these surveys all the time, right?
Hmm.
At the beginning of every semester, and we find that 85% of the students have had at least 1 or 2 years of musical training at some point in their growing up, and a good percentage have had quite a lot of musical training. It's actually the rarity to have a student who's had none. Which is why we kind of reach out to students who've had less experience, just because we want them to know that we're there. And I mean, none is particularly required, but there's a lot of people have played music in school. They played 3 years of viola in elementary school or middle school or something, and that it's surprising how much of that will stay with someone
And
all
that's
the way to college.
Right. Yeah.
as a
That
side
definitely
point,
does help.
I want to point out too that Piazza is really great for that, because people like you, if you happen to be on Piazza and you see somebody else's question, and they're like, "What's a quarter note?" or something, and if you know that, like we love people. Not that you're busy and stuff, so not like
I know.
spending time, but
But if I'm
you,
around, I definitely and like I see it, yeah, definitely.
it's a very that's one of the things that Piazza can be great, is sort of students helping each other and
build the community.
Yeah,
jumping
we've
in there,
been kind of waiting to start it, because this course in particular gets a lot of ads, and so even up until
a lot of
a lot of students add this course.
Oh.
So what happens is the enrollments really spike after the course should have started. So we get like a third of the students come in, that right at the end, and so I think a lot of courses
I was already into the class.
Yeah, but quite a few people don't, and so we kind of wait to start certain things. But now that we're into Unit 2,
I'm saying I added it late, like the other people.
Oh yeah. So that's very common, and what we're gonna do, and what we've done before, which has worked real well, but we've kind of waited till things settle down a little bit, is we generally kind of incentivize the forums. So if you go in there and answer a question, and we think you've answered it well, or if you ask a good question, we can click this button that says "Good question" or "Good answer." And if you get one of those, we give extra credit. So for every good question you answer, every good question you ask, or every good answer you give, you can earn a half a point or a quarter point extra credit, and that can really accumulate. You get 4 of those over the course of the semester, and there's one homework assignment that you can choose not to do well on. I'll put it that way. I'm not going to say choose to skip, but you can choose to do not so well on. Oh, look, it's really gotten dark here. Oh.
I know. I'm noticing it. The lighting has dimmed. So is there anything else we can kind of answer or help out with? Or it sounds like you're on.
I was wondering about after this course, if I don't know if online or Rutgers offers any further music notation courses or music composition courses. So I know that there's a lot of courses for music majors, but that's like composing is more of a hobby of mine. But I definitely like to do this kind of stuff on the side.
That's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. And I don't have a great answer because I don't know the full course offerings that well. But both of us are composers, and we're all about that. And so why don't we dig around a little bit and see what we can come up with and get back to you, because we definitely want to encourage that.
If it's not offered through Rutgers, I'd be interested in any programs or.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Robin here works. Our Professor McQuillan, works for a Noteflight, which is an online.
That's awesome. I've been using Noteflight since 2011.
So
Oh,
there may be some some resources that he can hook you up with in that regard, and we would love to branch out onto the internet more and make these services more available and other offer other kind of course offerings. One thing we were thinking about is kind of doing. I've actually put some white here so you can the screen will light me a bit. But it's actually create a kind of some course offerings around kind of a community of kind of practice. So lots of people log in, they learn a little bit about theory, they do some compositions, and then they discuss what they're doing, and then have some kind of more experienced moderators to give feedback. But all these things take a lot of time, so it's one of those things that's sort of on our docket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's any updates with that, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, we'll dig around and we'll write to you individually and maybe also post it on Piazza because I'm sure you're not alone in being interested in that. And
we hope you're not.
If anybody comes to watch this, it's a shout out to.
Yeah. Composers everywhere, get in touch with all of us on this call. We'll hook you up.
And we really appreciate you joining us. It really makes the conversation more lively.
You guys seem so lonely here, so.
We appreciate it.
You offered a service for the class, so I thought I might as well.
We appreciate it. It's the first semester we've done these live things, so it hasn't quite picked up yet. But once everyone knows how awesome they are, that it's gonna be way too popular. We're gonna have to turn people away at the doors.
I'm sorry. Was that your wife laughing in the background at you?
That was my wife. I think she's watching TV.
Oh, okay. She's not laughing. She wasn't
laughing at me. She often does, but not in this.
Not in this case. Well, I think we'll be as it gets more difficult. I'm sure we'll have more people who are interested in watching, and that's what I was saying. As we said, 85% of the classes had some sort of musical training, and even though we might cover a few things which they haven't really thought about, like how to break the octave up or something, in the first unit, in the first half of the second unit, by the time we start drifting in past lesson 4 and unit 2, we start getting fewer and fewer people who've actually had that material before. I know that a lot of the stuff at the end of Unit 2 and the stuff into Unit 3 was not things I understood or really knew about when I went to school for music. So by the time you drift into that third unit, there's no guaranteeing that musical training will help you, and as we get into 4, 5, and 6, it absolutely won't. And if you rely on the fact that you've had musical training, you'll hit a wall eventually, and you'll find yourself not finishing homework assignments in time because you're not giving yourself enough time, or you missed some important detail that we covered earlier on. So it's not that we enjoy that, but
well, I know there's plenty of famous musicians that have no background in music theory.
I know, but
you can be an amazing. You can be a.
I'm saying I'm saying that I understand the disconnect between. You might have had this experience, but it doesn't mean that still means you got to do the work for the music theory.
Yeah, I mean we kind of bang that drum a lot, but we bang the drum a lot that you gotta pay attention. But we do find that sometimes people bite off more than they can chew, assuming that they've already studied this, and it's good to remember, good to read through the lessons, just because we do cover a lot of stuff that kind of fills out the picture for a lot of people.
Well, and it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, that it's you may have that experience, but it's applying the concepts and the notation to it, and that's the tricky step that can be difficult. It's not the music itself in a way.
Right.
Yeah, but well, we should all get ourselves to bed, or at least onto our next activities.
Yeah, it's still early. It's only 7:15 here. I get some.
I know.
I can smell some dinner cooking.
Sounds good.
Alrighty.
All right. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you to all the Music 133 listeners who are seeing me sit in the dark. And
hi guys.
Great. Good night.
Please join us. We have fun here, hopefully. All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.